Welcome to Playbook for Performance, the official podcast of Shauna Corden, the Joan of Arc for corporate healing and performance. Join the quest to make work fun again by preparing leadership for engaging workplaces. And now, your host.
Hi folks, welcome back. Thanks for your patience with us. I know you were eagerly awaiting step 5 in the business planning process, but I took a little holiday over to the ranch, had some golf, had some sun. It was great. So I'm eager to get back with you and make sure that you can progress on your journey with business planning here. So what we're going to talk about today is taking that work breakdown structure, and we'll recap what that means, down to 90-day increments. So let's get started. So why 90 days? Why not 120 days? Why not, whatever? Well, people in general are not overwhelmed by 90 days. If you think about a school calendar, it's often arranged in terms that are 12 weeks long. If you think about the seasons of the year, generally 12, 13 weeks, people can organize their thoughts around it pretty easily. It's a very reasonable time to make progress. It's a lot easier to distinguish aspirations from behaviors. So what do I mean when I say that? Well, an aspiration is really where you want to go with the process. It's your vision. It's different in that you can't do it. Like an aspiration might be to lose 15 pounds. But if I said, okay, lose 15 pounds, it's not something that you can do just like that. But you can take a number of behaviors that will add up to that over time. And sometimes people will confuse that goal or that aspiration or that vision with the actual behaviors that are required in order to fulfill that vision. So it's easier to make those distinctions. I think it's better with accountability. If the season is too long, or the period of time that you give someone is too long to accomplish a task, sometimes it can get moved to the back burner for things that are more urgent. And in that case, it kind of catches them by surprise, like, oh, we're meeting now? In general, I don't like to meet with my clients once a month because they tend to spend time catching me up on things that have happened since the last time we met, rather than getting down into what we need to work on that day. And so I think what happens is it catches them by surprise that, oh, Shauna and I are meeting today. I got to tell her all this stuff that I did and that I haven't been slacking. I think when you meet more frequently, you know you have to stay on top of it. It's like that adage, if you want something done, give it to a busy person. They manage their time better, etc. So that's what I mean about the accountability piece. It's also not so long to get away from you. It's easier to break things down into those bite-sized chunks. Again, if we want to talk about losing 15 pounds over a 12-week period, it's pretty easy to do the math, just dividing the numbers, etc. So that's why 90 days is great. Also, it falls into business quarters where we are reporting, revenue, costs, things like that. So it's a natural period of time. So last time we talked a little bit about the map and the route. So remember that the vision that you have is that final destination of where you're going. So let's pretend we're driving to Dallas, Texas from Central Oregon. And if we were to plot in Dallas, Texas in Google Maps, Apple Maps, your GPS system, whatever it might be, it will give you options. It will say, do you want to avoid toll roads? Do you want to take the scenic route? Do you want to take the fastest route? Do you want to take the shortest route? And all of those things are determined by step 1 in this business planning process, which is your values. Those values will help you make those decisions about fastest, shortest, cheapest, you name it. Now, using that same analogy, if we know that it's going to take a year to get from Central Oregon to Dallas, Texas, it's pretty easy to divide that distance into 4 increments. Now, they may not be 4 equal increments. For example, you may know that in the winter it will be harder driving and it will be more difficult. You might have to put chains on, whatever it might be. In the summer, it might be difficult. There might be more traffic. There might be more road construction, things like that. So we do want to anticipate the things that are happening within that season, but we can still break it down into 4 increments, and those are 90-day periods. Now, the other thing we really want to do is we want to apply prospective hindsight or a pre-mortem to our planned actions. Now, what are those things? I will have to look up which of the podcasts are that we covered this topic. But basically, everybody's familiar with a postmortem. So if you've watched a crime show, they do an autopsy on the body and they tell you what this person died from. You know, was it really the blunt force trauma, or, you know, were they poisoned? I watch way too many British mystery shows. So this is the opposite of that. This is anticipating what it might look like. So, for example, if we are talking about driving this 90-day period, this quarter of the distance to Dallas, and it's summertime, what might we expect? It could be summer travelers. It could be we want to avoid anything around national parks. It could be road construction. It could be more expensive because of the gas rate hikes that happen during the summer travel season. It could be that it's more difficult to find hotels to stay in along the route. Those are all the things that we should anticipate. But we also want to apply our personal preferences and tendencies to this. So, for example, if you know that you're going to be working on a project with a last-minute deadline right up until the time you leave for your trip, that you might be a little behind. You might leave a couple hours late, things like that. And so when it comes to this prospective hindsight or pre-mortem, what we're really trying to do is anticipate what might happen in general, anticipate what might happen to the people who are directly involved. Yourself, whom you're delegating it to, the organization, competitive situations, either internally or externally, media, politics, you name it. We want to look at all those things as we plan. So remember, the whole reason that we're translating the vision to this 90-day plan is to give the team confidence. They want to know where they're going. They want to know exactly what their part is in that process, meaning I see the vision and I know what part is dependent on me and what I'm doing to help us get there. That could be packing snacks, making sure tires are properly inflated, putting together the playlist, making sure that if the biggest ball of twine is along the route, that we make sure we stop and see it. Whatever it is, we really want to know what's expected of us over the next 90 days, 12 weeks, okay? And this needs to account for possible sick time, possible bereavement, mental health days, personal vacations, you name it. All of those things need to be incorporated in the workload and how it's distributed over that 12-week period. So, we've already figured out what the major steps are. So, we know, for example, in this piece here, that we're driving from Central Oregon to Dallas, Texas. We know roughly how many miles it is. We know how much luggage we need. We know that we need fuel. We need hotel stops. We need a couple of, fun hours here and there, that kind of thing. Each of those are its own little bucket that may be assigned to one or more people. And then within that bucket, there are multiple tasks. There's the mellow playlist. There's the pump me up playlist. There's the we're tired of talking to each other and we all need a break playlist. Whatever that might be, you've got to put those together, again, all informed by the values, step one. And what's the duration of each of those tasks? How long does it take to create the playlist, but also how long is that playlist? And how many times can we rely on that playlist before someone says, I never want to hear that song again? Okay. Each of those tasks gets put on a Post-it note, and we want to sequence the Post-it notes. This step happens before this step, this step, this step, but they're all under the bucket of creating the playlists, okay? Or entertainment, whatever you want to call that. And in general, I would suggest doing the whole year at once and moving the Post-it notes within the year. But if that's too overwhelming, just do the first 90 days, then the next 90 days. But generally, what we want to do is connect the tasks together and remember that some of these tasks you're going to have to wait for someone else to finish their task first, or you have to wait for a process. Maybe it's a government approval. Maybe it's hearing from the national park that indeed you got a pass to go in, since they're limiting the number of people who can go into any given park at any one time. It might be that you have to wait because you're waiting to hear back from a hotel whether you can get in, that kind of thing. The other thing you want to think about is which tasks are appropriate for which season. So, for example, I just did my wardrobe switchover. So I live in a four-season climate, and so I was swapping out cold for warm. Then we got a little bit of a cold snap. So I was digging out like, oh, that was premature. I still need that. So you may want to anticipate some of those things and put things in the proper season. My experience, years of business planning, people get super ambitious about front-loading all of the tasks into the first quarter of the year. And sometimes that's a good thing. That means you've hit all your targets by Q3, you've hit your revenue, you've hit your cost cutting, your assets under management, whatever it might be. That can be a great thing. But sometimes it's overwhelming because people try to do half the work in the first quarter rather than having it equally spread across 4 quarters. This might be a cultural thing in your organization. It might be a personal thing because of vacations. It could be that your organization has multiple required training on, health and safety, ergonomics, things like that. You know that people are going to be caught up in that and they'll have less time. Those are all things to consider when you're plotting your Post-it notes along the year. I think this task, once you've created the vision, you've put it in the big buckets, you've mapped out the major tasks, this plotting piece and ordering those and figuring out the dependencies should take about 2 hours. Once that 2 hours is done, I'd say don't overwork it. Just start working the plan. You may have to add additional Post-it notes you didn't think of. You may need to sequence some things that you hadn't anticipated, but don't worry about it. You can call it rolling wave planning or just-in-time planning, and that's okay. The main point is that you get started, you make decisions, and you get moving right away, and don't overthink it. It's always better to decide early and then backtrack to what you already know than it is to wait and overanalyze and pull more data, waiting for perfection when you may have missed the boat. So by all means, decide, get moving. There's no shame in saying, we were wrong. We misread this data. We didn't anticipate this. we're going to change our tactic on this. The vision's still the same, but the tactic is going to change. There's nothing wrong with that. And people will respect you for having the courage to admit, and they will respect you even more for having the guts to make the decision and lead the team. So that's the whole process on the breakdown into the 90-day plan. Next time we are going to be talking about tracking those 90 days, how to track it, what the specific actions are, what the numbers are that go with every single little post-it in terms of this means 1.5 pounds a week, or this means 12 playlists, or whatever it might mean. But if you're in the middle of this as an entrepreneur, an intrapreneur, if you're in corporate, whatever it might be, it's helpful to get other people on the same page. When I was managing a PMO, lots of people would ask me, is it really that important to have your PMP? And it wasn't that a PMP made the project manager a better project manager, but it did mean they knew their stuff, they knew the vocabulary, they could communicate it with confidence to their peers and management, and everybody meant the same thing. And I think if you invite others to learn this process with you, they're going to have the same vocabulary, they're going to be on the same page, you'll move much faster. So I invite you to include your friends in this process. We all want to grow together, and a rising tide lifts all boats. If I can come and talk to your team and help you through this process, get you to that 90-day plan, I would love to help you and have you take action towards that vision and those dreams that you have. If you are in the HR community, I will be speaking at SHRM. I'm speaking the same day as Bill Clinton. So that'll be in Las Vegas in June. And then if you're a coach, or you're in the coaching community, or you're aspiring to be part of that community, I will be speaking at Converge in Orlando in August. And I would love to see you there. So please drop a note if you're going to be there so I can make plans to meet you. Until next time, take good care.